video and just scouting stuff on these teams this quickly? How does that kind of turnaround work?
Much easier these days, much harder. A lot of secret handshakes. But what's amazing in technology is, when it comes up on board, you can just go to the internet and find out that St. Louis won the A10, and unfortunately for us, they have an ace. How I feel about that. The first thing you look at it, out of that 4 seed is, do they have an ace pitcher? And certainly they do. In Hogan, and a guy that's got 2 ERA and 129 strikeouts and about 100 innings. So, but that'll just show you how much easier the information is. And as far as video, we like a lot of teams, we have a I don't know what you call it, subscription program that we get a lot of the video. That's all the games that are streamed. A little harder with mid-majors because they don't play as many games. SEC, there's obviously no secrets, but we'll have plenty of stuff.
What was the initial reaction seeing the teams that are going to play in Oxford?
A little surprised, and not because of any particular team that they sent here. All teams that are regionally close, I would assume they're all a bus ride away. Nobody from a Power 5. And then sometimes I think, unfortunately, for the casual fan, it loses some of the zip. But when you look at Tennessee Tech, I think they have the most wins in the country. We're second, I think. And so you got 2 teams in the same regional that are first and second in the country in wins. And then, of course, St. Louis that we just talked about. So a really good field. Everybody will debate and talk, RPI and try to spin how their field is good. I haven't seen enough of the information about the other teams, but obviously, anytime you get to this point, it's a huge challenge.
I don't think anybody was surprised, Mike, but what was the feeling when the national seed was flashed up on the screen?
Well, they did a little different this year when they announced the 4 seeds earlier, which I didn't even know they were doing that. And so, once that came up, you figured, it doesn't take a genius, you're going to be, probably 3 or 4. But just proud. I mean, we've said it, I think for the last few weeks. Our team's played really well, and very deserving of this. A team that's played, hasn't been streaky, wasn't just, we finished well, but it wasn't, that's what got us here. I mean, we played well from game 1, and finished it off. I think we won 3 out of our last 4 weekends in the SEC. Played really well in the tournament in Hoover. So, excited, proud, but I think our guys are really deserving.
So any update on Gray and his hamstring?
No, haven't heard anything yet today.
Mike, what's this mean for that #1 recruiting class that came in a couple years ago? This is their first NCAA tournament, and
Yeah, I think probably a better question for them to answer, but certainly a lot of expectations put on those guys last year, and now now that you look at it, maybe deservingly so. Maybe at the end of last year at this time, you look back and people probably wondered, but when you look at the way those guys played this year, they worked really hard and were able to handle it. This league will humble you, and it will make you grow up, in a hurry. And those guys certainly did that. They grew up. Kudos to them for all the work they put in the summer, last fall with Mike Clement and Coach Lafferty, both on the mound and at the plate, and put together a really good year.
Everybody's been in that spot at some point with Kentucky getting left out despite all the metrics being good. What's kind of your thoughts on conference record mattering that much when you're in this league?
Really disappointing. Really, it was what I was told that kept us out last year, and just disappointing. To me, it's that. That double-edged sword where people will throw, and not just at the SEC, but especially the SEC, but most of the Power 5 conferences, but especially the SEC, people say, well, you have that RPI because you play in that league, and that RPI is built in. Well, part of that means that you're playing really good teams week in and week out, and so therefore we beat up on each other. And so you can have a really good team that has a sub 500 record, and when that's going to be the stigma or one of the criteria, that's really unfair. And so when you look at a team like Kentucky and not matching them up against any particular team, or a team like us last year, and you match them up with some other team in a conference that is not as good, as that, and I think everybody recognizes that, then to say that they wouldn't have a better year or a sub 5 or above 500 record in those leagues, to me it doesn't make sense. I mean, the logic doesn't make sense that you get penalized almost double. You get penalized, well, we're not going to really count your RPI. You start looking at teams in the Southeastern Conference, once you have RPIs in the 40s, people say, well, that's getting a little high. But if you're in another conference and your RPI is 40, that's supposed to be a positive. But it's the same metric, and you're saying, well, it's built in because you're in the SEC, but then you get penalized because you have more losses. To me, it makes no sense.